Hello, everyone. I am Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby here with Ismael Cruz Córdova of The Lord of the Rings of Power. And you play the elf Arondir in this show. And I think because Lord of the Rings was such a huge thing, fans, like when they hear elf, immediately kind of conjure images of like the way Hugo Weaving or Orlando Bloom talked or moved in the original trilogy. So I'm wondering how you kind of dealt with the legacy of this franchise, and how do you within that find your own physicality, your own mannerisms as you play an elf?
I think, of course, this is so. There's interpretation, there's folklore, there's all the stories that we made, and there's the visual representation of what we've seen in the cinematic universe, and definitely is influential. But I had to contend with what that meant in terms of visuals, but also representation. I'd never seen an elf look like me. There had never been one until I came to the show. So I had an opportunity of bringing my own experiences to that, my own version of classic, my own version of elvenness with what I'm made of. I mean, Hugo, Orlando, Kate Blanchett, these were their contributions coming from where they stood in the world. So I wanted to create an elf from where I stand in the world, and what I also was missing, that I also know it's elven, and infuse that with um, a different kind of elf, and he is a different kind of elf that we've seen before, that we haven't seen before. So it's a hierarchy of the elves that you see, that there's actually lower hierarchy elves, are they're more of the populace, frontline soldiers. It's not just what we're used to seeing is royals. You don't
Sure.
realize that it's all royals. Even Legolas, it's a royal, you know. So I think this is one of the first times that you see an elf from the bunch, essentially, a poor elf's elf. So yeah, of course I bow, I tip my hat to our forefather elves and foremothers. But I took the chance of doing something new as well.
Yeah. Was there like one particular aspect of him that you really connected with and that helped you find your way into the character?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a resilience that I, with humility, I can say that I have a resilience that sometimes shocks me. How I've been able to traverse what I've traversed personally, to be here. I grew up in quite a poor community in the mountains of Puerto Rico, with no possible overlap of where I am at today. It's kind of an improbable journey, and what I've been through, what I've stood for, the kind of passion that has led me, fearlessness, or just forward movement, even with the fear, even with all the obstacles. I've experienced homelessness even to, be able to dedicate myself to this, um, and this stoicness that I also, tend to have in my own life, and um, having to become kind of solid to be able to traverse. In my opinion, that's him. He's an outsider, you know.
Hmm.
He's an outsider. He's been denied. He's been abandoned. He's been made voiceless, and then on top of that, he's not really well liked in this other community. He's an outsider in the elves, and he's an outsider with the humans. So everything about him felt like it was calling me to portray him. So
Yeah. Well, and speaking of your resilience, I believe you auditioned multiple times. You got a no first. What was it? You said it called to you. What was it that made you say, no, I'm not going to take no for an answer. I'm going to go back?
well, everything I just said, and I mean, man, the thing is that I have I have had the journey, like,
Yeah.
to be doing what I'm doing. And as I said, I grew up extremely poor. Family, like, high levels of illiteracy, so on and so forth. First generation to, like, have higher education opportunities, and Lord of the Rings was very influential in my life. That when the movies came about, they just about shaped my uh, adolescence and so on. And I really wanted to be an elf, and I was told that I couldn't. So by the time that I got to audition to be an elf, I've been preparing for this role for 20 years. So you think that a few no's were gonna deter me by that point? Like when I've been for 21 years just telling the entire world and everybody that could hear me that no, I was going to be an elf and I should and be allowed to be an elf and I have the right to be an elf. And because I was not white or this classic vision of what an elf was, nobody was going to take that away from me. And I was actually rejected 3 times. It wasn't just once.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
so yeah, it was. I just kept saying no. This is mine, and I believe in it. And I knew what it was going to be. I knew the impact that it was going to have, and I knew the backlash that I was going to have. The backlash was even bigger than I thought it would, but I knew that it was going to be there. So I wasn't going in thinking that this was going to be like peaches and cream. I was there because I knew that I could. I had the resilience to withstand what came after.
Yeah.
And here we are.
We're glad you kept going back.
You and me reminiscing.
Yeah, it's, I'm a lover of the fantasy genre and Lord of the Rings, but it's unfortunately many of these fantasy series, back in the original books, like they're oftentimes not very diverse, and when they get on screen they're not very diverse. What would it have done for you as a little kid loving Lord of the Rings to see people of color in these roles as an elf?
I say that when you can see it, you can imagine it. When you can imagine it, you can create it. It is a very representation really does matter. That's why there's a very clear line. Representation matters for everyone that is marginalized to be able to see themselves existing is important. You I cannot stress it enough because that's the character is I get emotional because it doesn't seeing these kids around the world dressed like Aron did, but not just kids, not just kids of color. I was in this it happened in several cons. Trans folk, for example, dressed as Aron did or dressed as Galadriel, like these, like, but for Aron did this margin appeals to like the forgotten, the discarded, the weirdos, the ones that have been told that they shouldn't exist. It's such an important, pivotal, crucial, life making and life affirming thing. We have to see ourselves represented. We all have the right to exist. And what it would have done for me, I honestly can't even tell because I didn't have it, but that's why I went for it. And what I see these kids, what they're doing with what I'm giving them is that they're taking it even further, and that's what I can concentrate. Like, what can I give them so that they can take whatever little bit I'm doing, and how are they gonna transform it? Like an old elf, I'm gonna be very proud. but yeah. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah. In terms of what you are bringing to this character, there is such a, rich world that they've created, from the makeup to the costumes to the sets. And I was just actually talking to Owain Arthur, and he was talking about, his extensive makeup and costume work he had to do. When you're sitting in that, when you get your ears on and your costume on, what does that do for you? How does that help you with the character?
Oh, those ears do absolutely everything. As soon as you put them on, I kind of land on the chair in the morning. It's like 3 a.m. when you start getting all of it done, and by the time that those ears start getting on your face, you start standing a little taller. You feel a little more elven, and it does help you that because it takes me about an hour and 15 to get them on, or 20, because they look like small pieces, but they actually take a lot of painting and whatnot. But by the time that I'm done with that process, you start transforming, entering, your voice drops. My RP accent begins to show as well. I start speaking like I don't did. It really impacts me. And because I have tiny ears, so when I actually don't like, it feels like I have regular ears. So I hate taking them off at the end of the day, and when I'm showering, I get like ghost ear. I kind of go, and it's not there. It's like a sad moment in the shower. I'm like, oh.
And one of my favorite, I think, moments of yours in this series was after when Arondir is captured at that orc, the elf labor camp the orcs have them in. There's a moment after this epic fight scene where he climbs, they've been defeated, and you climb that embankment and just see how hopeless it is, how much of the land has been taken, and you just start swinging into that tree. And it's a great, like, the series, I think, does a good job of peppering in these really emotional punches after an action scene or with an action scene. What was that like? Describe that moment to him. There's so much going on in your face in that moment.
That was after all the rejections and like 7 months of auditioning and whatnot. When I was taken to New Zealand for my last audition randomly, I was like, really? I got there, and that was a detail that was revealed to me. That entire time I was auditioned to be a man. And right before the screen test, like 12 hours, they said, actually, by the way, I just wanted to let you know that the character you're auditioning for is an elf. So I had that scene of the hacking of the chopping of the tree. I've been working with it for different versions for like 6 months. And when they told me that it was an elf, it completely changed everything. And I went to this park and started doing it again and improvising and really feeling what that was. And that moment where I put my hand on the tree and pray for its forgiveness, that came out of that improvisation that I did in that park before my screen test. And I did it on the screen test, and then it went to the show. And it's just, after all that context, where we're at, Tolkien was talking about in that moment, we're still there. How we're treating nature, how we're treating the earth, how we're treating our fellow human beings, our disconnection with the earth, our understanding that we're separate from nature. That it's all in that moment, that connection that he has with that tree, and that shame and that guilt is all that I was thinking about. What are we doing, and how can we make this better? And like all that sacrifice and that just deep, deep, deep pain. Because for the elves, that's like chopping your mom's arm, literally.
Yeah.
So I was trying to put that all through the structure of elvenness, because it's, as an actor, is actually extremely challenging to emote in certain ways while being an elf.
Yeah, well, and emoting, it's a series that takes time to, I think, have a quiet moment like that amidst, the moment before you're doing a crazy fight sequence. So what would be harder for you? Like, is the action scenes, or something that's emoting like that, that's more quiet?
Oof. I'm gonna say it's a toss up, because the fighting for me, I'm also with the character. I've been trying to bring it out of just what people know as stunting. Oh, you're doing just stunts. For me, it's very lyrical. See, he doesn't speak a lot in this first season. He does a lot. So even the movement, how everything that I did, I created this movement mythology that reflected his background, that reflected what he felt, and I trained heavily on that, and I put it together just to be that. So I like to think that even when I'm doing those action sequences, you still are feeling drama through it. But after that long-winded answer, I'm also thinking it is challenging. The dramatic moments are challenging for the elf. The we're so structured, So to break a little bit and show that emotion, is, as an actor, is a big one. is a big one. I hope I did well.
Well, after season 1, you did get a Critics' Choice nomination, so clearly people thought you did well.
That I did. That was fun.
So congratulations on that. What, after you've had such a long journey, you said you've been preparing for this for 20 years. After all that and auditioning multiple times and going, the work in this season, what does it feel like to have it all recognized in that way?
You have to, there's a moment in your career as an artist, and I don't know how it is for you, but you kind of have to give up on awards meaning a lot, because you have to lead with your passion, and you can't just wait for people to tell you that you're good or not. So I'm very honored, extremely honored about it. But when it came after so much backlash and online harassment and all this bullying and the death threats and the horrendous stuff that I had to go through, that recognition felt, I said this before, like a fresh glass of water in a long marathon under a scorching sun. It felt like a hug. It felt like a pat on the shoulder. Like I was being seen just for my effort. It's not that I'm better than anyone else. It's not that I was better than any supporting actor. That's all subjective. But in this character cannot be unlinked, what I do on screen, through what I went through off screen. It's all there. It's all mixed. It's all intertwined. The effort, the emotion, the gravitas, everything that you see me put on that screen is filled with everything that happened off screen and everything that I was preparing for off screen. That nomination was very fulfilling, and it was like a big F you to all the haters. I like an affirmation that the work that we're doing is good, and the good guys win at the end.
Which is what Lord of the Rings is really all about at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much. It's a great job in this season, Ismael. Thank you for sitting down and talking with me. Everyone who's watching, make sure you subscribe to Gold Derby. Keep up to date with many other conversations just like this. Thank you again, Ismael.
Thank you for having me. It's a great chat, and hopefully I'll see you soon again. And season 2, I think you're going to love it.
Yes, we're looking forward to season 2.
All right. Cheers.